So what we're going to do now is we're going to tie in everything that we've learned so far and how to apply it into your business. Now, everything that you're about to look over, it's a refresher or just review of what we've gone over. Um, if you follow this, not to a T, but kind of assimilate it to your business, your product, service, and the market you serve, it's going to be hard for you to fail as a business. Okay, you can argue if operations are not doing well, um, that, hey, my business can fail. That is true, but if sales are good, there's always a way. If you have funding, if you have money, you can solve a lot of problems, at least temporarily. So when I make that statement, it's not long term. Yes, you can have a lot of sales, but if you don't fix operational issues, the business might fail. But as long as sales are there, it's going to fix a lot of the problems that you might have, at least in the short term. So what I'll do in this specific section, not only am I going to tie things together, I'm going to split this into two parts. I'm going to go over an example. Um, we're going to use a product, which is, we could talk about a car dealership, and you selling a vehicle or selling cars. And then in the next section, we'll apply it to software, right? So B2C example and B2B. So from a B2C standpoint, let's go over the outer layer, okay? Attention is is one of the most important things that you have to understand that is part of the sales process. Okay, you can't rely on a marketing team and put blame on others. Hey, there's nobody coming into our doors at our dealership. What's going on with marketing? You could ask them, but as a salesperson, you need to take extreme ownership on the output that are supposed to have, that you want to have. Um, so when it comes to attention, you need to get the attention of your prospects, right? Before you start building value of your product, before you start building trust as an authority in the space, before you understand if they can buy the car, you need to talk to people. So it almost is self-explanatory, but don't think that sometimes if business is slow and there's nobody coming in the doors, you can blame it on that. There's always ways, especially now, to get the attention of prospects, right? There's social media. I mean, if you're working in a dealership, there's probably other dealerships nearby. Obviously, you want to abide by the rules and the laws. But there's ways of stepping outside your door, and if someone's, just taking a look at some vehicles from the outside, maybe not coming in, start the conversation outside. Don't be lazy. Don't wait for them to come to you. You have to go out and make the sales yourself. So attention is very important. Okay. I'm not going to go heavily into the marketing side of that because that is not what this course is about. Um, but again, attention is number one. You need to get the attention of someone that you can potentially build value with, you can potentially build trust with, and funding. So if you have someone come in the dealership, we've gone over that example when going over value and trust. But let's tie all these pieces together. So someone comes into the dealership, you can walk up to them. How can I help you today? What brings you in, right? Try not to get too heavily invested in traditional sales terms, but that's a viable question. What brings you in, right? If they go ahead and ask you or state, hey, I'm looking for, I'm just looking around, right? Let's start with that example. I'm just looking around. Okay. And you can call it out. Well, you drove all the way from the house, right? From your home to come in. You could have looked at it online, right? You have to do it in a professional way. So they're just curious to why you would want to see it in person. Okay, well, the reason why is, and they might open up there, right? You got to weave in, you got to take some risks in conversation. You can't be too by the book and too and too scripted because prospects do read that. But you can call that out, right? If someone actually drove from their house to come in the dealership and they're just looking around, that's probably a false statement. There's probably an interest or need to buy a vehicle for somebody in their household. If not, again, they can go look at it online. Sometimes they might want to look at it in person because they don't trust what they see online. Great, but likely they're probably in the market. Perfect. So you can start asking questions about, what if you get past that objection. Again, we're making it up on the fly, but that's part of sales is you got to be able to kind of roll with the punches and kind of keep the conversation going. As the person's asking about a vehicle or you're going over, some of what they may be interested in, having knowledge in your product is important to do what? To build trust, right? And having the customer believe what you are saying and believe if you were going to allow them to do something or you're going to do something for them to deliver on that. Remember what trust is having them believe that you'll do as a business what you say you'll do and having their best interest in mind. So having a conversation about the vehicle that they're interested in, giving a little bit of a history on it, Um, but also calling out sometimes if you're going over what you know about the vehicle, don't hard sell or push into a sale right away. Maybe call out, hey, this vehicle might not be best for you because you stated that you want a larger vehicle for your family, right? Build that trust is sometimes as important or more important than building value of choosing our dealership. No, I want to build trust with you. I want to show you what's best in mind for you. Here's why. As we're going into that, funding might be early. It might be preemptive, but you can start making anticipations. If you're not doing anything, you can kind of go through the sales process. But if someone, if there's a young kid coming in, right, maybe 18 years old, 19, 20, and it may seem like they might need some assistance in purchasing the vehicle, you can start inviting that conversation early. Not necessarily go through the entire sales process after an hour, maybe potentially doing a test drive and finding out, hey, just curious, if you're interested in this vehicle, how will you be paying for it? Again, there's a way of saying it, um, but you might want to address that a little earlier than someone a little older that looks like they can handle, purchasing a vehicle on their own. Again, you can't make a full assumptions until they maybe do a credit check with your finance team or getting a little bit more information on how that funding will take place. But it's important to kind of weave that in the conversation. So the goal here in this specific section is tying all the pieces together and practicing and learning how to put the pieces together and doing it in a way that's not completely scripted, right? It can have some scripted behind it. So we're going to start on the value side. So, we talked about scarcity repercussion. We talked about convenience. We talked about idolization, attraction, idolization, liking, and sense appeal. So, as we're going through the value of the product or the vehicle, um, we're going to start in the scarcity repercussion, just going over, hey, this vehicle, it seems like, after you build enough value for it and saying, hey, this vehicle is the size that you're looking for, and since you're already in here, it seems like you're nodding your head, you like what you see. You can kind of tweak the truth a bit as far as, and I don't like to use the word lie, but hey, listen, this vehicle in this specific color might not be available in the coming month or two in the time frame that you're interested in procuring it, right? If you don't act now, you might have to wait till the end of year. So scarcity repercussions kind of build that urge like, maybe I should make an action now. Because again, time kills all deals. If you wait too long, hey, come in when you're ready. You got to find out as a salesperson how to push that forward a little sooner than later, right? Convenience, taking courses of action to move the sales along for the person and making it easier for them. Okay, so if they have to find out from your finance team what their credit gives them or available credit for them to purchase a vehicle or what they can be financed for, start pre-filling information for them. Don't let people do things on their own. It might be a small thing for them, but adding convenience to the entire sales process is tremendously valuable over time, incrementally. They see you, they perceive you, they feel working with you is just a lot easier. So that builds value, auxiliary value to the product you're trying to sell. Attractionalization, put yourself together as you know, especially in the car dealership. Depending on the level of dealership that you go to and the type of cars they sell, you'll notice that they dress a little nicer. Don't I don't, it doesn't matter who you work for, right? You need to present yourself as to the highest standard as possible. Put on a suit, right? If you're working with somebody, do it in the right way. Unless you have a uniform, put your hair together, make yourself look nice in front of the who you're selling to. Again, subconsciously, they are going to tie. If this person is taking care of themselves, they'll probably take care of the process of selling. They'll probably take care of me as a customer. It's subconsciously training them. Liking, again, liking a person liking you doesn't always attribute to a sale. But if all things are equal, if the dealership is down the street is offering the same thing, the deciding factor is just, hey, do you like the person? Do you like working with them? That's it. So we talked about, go back to that section if you want to learn again how to attribute that, and then sense appeal. So if smell good, look good, um, try to appeal to the senses here. So just speeding it up, going into trust. Providing rebates, and you don't want to devalue the product right away. You don't want to say, hey, I'll give you a rebate, or I can give $1,000 off the vehicle if you act now. But there's many ways that you reciprocate, and even as incremental as giving something as a cup of coffee, right? Hey, can I get you something? People are enticed to um, to give you something back, and it's going to be it's scalable, right? Social proof. If you have data on how much vehicles were sold of this specific model or make, or if you can highlight that you know how much of your dealership has sold, that social proof holds value. If other people are doing it, I probably should do it as a prospect. Commitment and consistency. Be committed, or let's just more on the consistency side. Um, be consistent on what you say. Remember, taking notes. I'm a person. I consistently forget what I say sometimes in this in the or I what I say in the sales process. So I take notes all the time. If it's in person, it's a little a little bit different. But if you're able to, try to remember what you say in the beginning of the call or beginning of the conversation. If you say something that doesn't kind of match what you said earlier, you kind of lose trust, right? So being consistent and also committed to the process and what you say that you're going to do. Goodwill, sneaking in there, I have a, and sometimes, you don't have to do this, but if you do have a family, if you do have something that you want to fund in a personal life and you want to share that, again, do it with authenticity. Sometimes that kind of says, okay, if I purchase this car, not only am I getting something as a prospect, am I getting something that I want, but I'm also helping somebody that's trying to achieve something that I really want them to achieve. Oh, and you don't want to make it cheesy, but sometimes saying, hey, I have, a vacation I want to pay for my family. You can sneak that in there. You don't have to, and you got to weave this in the right way because sometimes it can come off in the wrong way. So sometimes it does help. Unity, if you find out they're from the same school, or if you find out a license plate on their car is from a certain state that you've been to before, trying to tie that together, and that also kind of attributes to liking, which we've shared before, and empathy. If someone tells you something that brings out an emotion, right? Hey, I want to buy this vehicle because I want to relive, it's a spacious vehicle. I want to relive the times I went camping with my father or my family, and I want to do that with my kids. Chime into that. That's very valuable for you as a salesperson to kind of amplify um, essentially emotions in the process. And if that does, and it does it in a way that kind of ties into what you're selling, subconsciously, again, we're training our other people we're selling to. We're training them to subconsciously and emotionally to purchase what we're trying to sell. And then funding. So do they have a tangible path to purchase? This is more objective. I've went over this in the last section, but just understanding this, getting bits and pieces, how they will be funding it. Again, do it in the right way. Value and trust, especially from a physical product standpoint, is more important. So if you're in front of the person and it's a B2C engagement, funding, you can usually find a way, right? If what they're purchasing is not exceptionally expensive, a vehicle can be a different story. But you kind of want to get information, feed it to your team, especially at a car dealership. Feed it to your team, and let them know what's going on before they start filling out the forms or filling out the documentation to see if they get approved on financing for the vehicle. And understanding at a high level the process for funding, your offering, if it your offering is aligned to that process, and who are the decision makers. Okay, so in this section again, we wanted to tie this example or a B2C or a consumer product, which is selling a vehicle, and tying it to everything we've learned so far. And then in the next section, I'm going to go over this again, but use an example of selling software and selling it to an organization, which can be a little bit more complex. So I'll see you over there.